Well, hey guys, how are you guys doing, Unite? Well, again, my name is Megan. I'm really excited to be here with you guys. And if you don't know me, and so thank you for coming tonight to Unite. I would love to meet you guys if I haven't met you before, and so afterwards, come and say hi to me. But hey, we're tracking through this series on Elijah. So how many of you guys have been here at all through the series at all? Let me just hear ya. Yeah, you guys have been here. Well, if you guys were here last week, Ernesto, let's just give it up for him again. It was awesome. Ernesto, really great. And he started talking about how Elijah prayed and fire fell down from heaven. Like literally fire came and like burned up this whole altar, and it was crazy, right? And he was talking about how we need to have this connection with God, and that's how we can see God do great things through miracles and like prayer and all that kind of stuff. Like when we have a connection is when God will use our prayers, right? And so that was last week. The week before that, Chris Pasick, our very own Chris Pasick. Don't we love Chris? He's amazing, isn't he? So I just like, you guys don't realize how awesome Chris is, and so whenever you get a chance to, like, just tell him he's doing a great job, because I know it's an amazing responsibility to lead all of what he leads, and so I'm super thankful to be a part of this team, the Generation team, and so he came and he was talking about how God needs to work in us before he works through us. And you're talking about Elijah, and there's a couple things that Elijah did in these stories. Number one is that he was fed by crows in the desert when there was no water, and like he went to a brook. That was kind of crazy. Then he went to some lady's house and was like, yo girl, like make me some bread. And the girl was like, I only got enough to like feed me and my son, and then we're just gonna die. And he's like, no, dude. If you make me bread first, then I will make sure that the flour and the oil like keeps going. Like God's gonna do a miracle. And so she does, and then God does a miracle. Like that was crazy. And then a little bit later, her son dies, and Elijah prays, and God raises him up from the dead. Like, that's pretty crazy, right? And so I don't know about you, but if I was the type of, if I prayed and I raised some kid's son from the grave, like dead, and now he's alive, like I would be pretty stoked about that. Like, I don't know if you would too, if you'd be like, dude, come on, that's awesome. Like, can we agree? Like, that would be a pretty high moment in life. Yet, where we're going to start in this story today, there's a tension, because here we have Elijah, and what's going to happen right now is that he had just got done praying for fire to come down from heaven, and he saw that miracle. He saw that happen, like God did something amazing. And yet today, the tension that we're living in is that he's not on top of the world. The truth is that where we're going to pick up in the story, he's super depressed and upset. And that's pretty crazy, right? Like, what the heck? Like, how can he be upset and be like, God, I just want to die, when he just prayed fire down from heaven? That seems crazy to me. But that's the tension that we have right here, because I think oftentimes we are similar in our life, where maybe there's moments where you should feel really excited and really happy, but the truth is, for some reason, you're not. Or things seem to be going really well, like you got that job you were supposed to, and it should be a celebrating moment. Like, man, this is awesome, like God came through. But the truth is that you feel like very upset inside, and you're feeling like Elijah was. And so there's this tension, like, why is this happening? And so this is where we're gonna pick up in 1 Kings 19. And this is right after, again, he prayed fire down from heaven. He killed all the false prophets. And then Ahab is like, dude, like telling his wife what happened. Now, Jezebel, if you guys don't know anything about the story, Jezebel was an evil, evil queen, and she did not like that Elijah killed all the prophets, because she worshiped them. And so this is what happened. When Ahab got home, he told Jezebel everything Elijah had done, including the way he had killed all the prophets of Baal. So Jezebel sent this message to Elijah: may the gods strike me and even kill me if by this time tomorrow I have not killed you just as you have killed them. Elijah was afraid and fled for his life. He went to Beersheba, a town in Judah, and he left his servant there. Then he went on alone into the wilderness. Traveling all day, he sat down under a solitary broom tree and prayed that he might die. I have had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life, for I am no better than my ancestors who have already died. Man, to me that's crazy. I read that and I'm like, no way, that's the same guy. No way, that's the same Elijah that we've been studying for the last 2 weeks. Because that Elijah, like, he had the confidence of God. He had confidence so much that he prayed and God did huge things to him. How is that the same guy? Yet he's saying, God, kill me. I'm not the same. Like, I'm not even worth it. I didn't do anything great. And that's the same guy. Like, that doesn't even make sense. But again, haven't we all been there in some sense? Maybe you're in here and you're like, man, I started joining in this place, started being part of the movement, and yet right now, I don't feel close to God at all. I feel like giving up. Maybe you came to Monster Pong, which was really awesome, by the way, and you were like, man, I put my faith in Jesus, but right now I'm thinking that I should just stop even coming because, again, I don't feel it right now. I'm not trying to give up. I'm saying, God, is it even worth it anymore? And that's Elijah's things. He's like, God, is it even worth it anymore? And I know for me, I felt these tensions before, and not even like I'm talking about long time ago. Recently, even, I struggle a lot with feeling like that. There will be moments where I feel like should be on the top of the world, yet I'm very upset inside. And why does this happen? And I know for me, it came really to a point a couple years ago. So a couple years ago is when we kind of started this whole Jesus movement, the whole generation team, if you guys would know about it. And so what happened is they were like, hey, Earl, your pastor left. Chris was like taking everything on. And so all of a sudden they're like, hey, Megan, you're going to work with Chris. And I'm like, I don't know Chris. Like, all I know is that he loved Tim Hortons. Like, that's it. And I was like, who likes Tim Hortons? I'm sorry. I like Starbucks. I'm a Starbucks girl, so I already knew it was starting off rough to begin with. I was like, this isn't going to go together really well. But so all of a sudden, I got in a team, and at that time, it was just Chris and Josh and I. Josh was leading, and Chris and myself. And so we started this journey off together, kind of leading the generation ministry. But in some sense, we weren't a team yet because, him and Josh have known each other for a long time. They were part of Unite for a long time. I wasn't really a part of Unite at that time, and I just felt kind of the third wheel in a lot of ways. Like, they were kind of doing their own thing. I was kind of doing my own, just kind of saying, hey, I'm just going to focus on Fuel because I don't even know if I like you guys yet, like, to be honest. So I don't know if I want to be, like, around you guys all the time. Like, Chris annoyed me a lot, like he was always hitting me. I'm like, Chris, stop hitting me. I don't get it. But so this kind of progressed, and a few months into it, we had our winter retreat. And so again, they were new. They didn't know what they were doing, so I was kind of doing everything that I knew what to do, and so I just kind of like went on autopilot. But what happened through that is that I felt very alone because, again, I was doing a lot of it alone. I was like making things happen because they didn't know, but I felt so alone in that. And so we were having this huge retreat, and there was like 300 students there, tons of leaders. It was super successful. But in the midst of that, I was really like upset. And I remember coming off that retreat and then I was like, Chris, we need to meet up. Like, this is not working. And I was, at that point, I was ready to quit, to be honest. I was ready to walk away. I was like, this isn't worth it anymore. This isn't right. Like, things aren't going good. Like, I don't even know why I'm here anymore. Like, it's just not right. And it's because I felt very alone. And I believe that's why Elijah, too, felt that way, is he felt alone. And I don't know if you feel that way or felt that way before, too. But when we feel alone, maybe it's in our workplace. Maybe you're working somewhere and you're the only Christian, and you know that they start talking about you once you leave the room, or they try to hold their words so they don't cuss in front of you because you're the Christian, or they don't invite you places because they know you're the Christian, so you won't go. And you feel on the outside, right? Or maybe it's where you go to school and your college professor is making fun of Christians and you're sitting in the room like kind of sinking down in your chair because you feel very alone in that time because you're a Christian and the rest of the class is not. Maybe it's in your family. You came to Unite, like God has done something crazy, but your whole family, like it's not that way. And you feel isolated. They kind of like laugh every time you're going to church like, why are you going to church again? That's so silly. And you feel alone. Maybe you felt that way, and that's how Elijah was at this point because he was feeling alone. He said the only person that was with him, he sent him away, and he was alone in the moments. And guess what? We were not meant to do life alone. We're not meant to do life alone. God created us to be in relationships with people. And that was true for Elijah, that's true for us. And I know that changed everything as we were talking about the winter retreat. Like, if you guys fast forward a couple years, like things changed so much because we had relationship, and it wasn't just me on the outside doing everything. We fixed that because we became friends. And that's what Elijah was missing in this moment, is someone that would be in the trenches with him, someone that he was with, someone that was helping him in life, someone he was pouring into, someone he was leaving a legacy with. He was missing that. And so here's what happened is that Elijah cries out to God, and God talks to him. And so God was like, hey, come meet me on this mountain. I'm going to tell you what you need to do. And so this is what happens, is God reveals to Elijah what he was missing in this moment. And this is what God tells Elijah. He says this, then the Lord told him, go back the same way you came and travel to the wilderness of Damascus. And then he tells him like, hey, anoint this king, anoint this king. But then he says this, anoint Elisha from the town of Abel something to replace you as my prophet. So he said, go find this guy named Elisha. And I know, like, let's just be honest, the Bible does not make this easy on us, because Elijah and Elisha is what I'm talking about. So hopefully you guys can track with me, because it's super confusing. But the Bible is like that, I guess. Sometimes it's confusing with different names. But Elijah, so God tells Elijah, hey, go find this guy named Elisha. And so this is what he does. He goes, he says, so Elijah went and found Elisha plowing a field. There were 12 teams of oxen in the field. Elisha was plowing with the 12th team. Elijah went over to him and threw his cloak across his shoulders and then walked away. Elijah left the oxen standing there and ran after Elijah and said to him, first, let me go kiss my father and mother goodbye, and then I will go with you. Elijah replied, go back, but think about what I have done to you. So Elisha returned to his oxen and slaughtered them, and he used the wood from the plow to build a fire to roast their flesh. He passed it around the meat to the townspeople, and they all ate. And then he went to Elijah as his assistant. So if you guys don't catch what happened there, Elijah goes and puts his cloak on Elisha. That's like saying, hey, I want you to be my apprentice. I want you to follow me. He was a prophet. He was a known prophet. And so at that day, they understood what that meant. And so he's like, hey, come follow me, see what I do. It's pretty much what he was saying. Hey, come follow me. And Elisha had this choice in this moment. But he's heard. At this point, he's heard of the things that Elijah has done. He's seen the things that Elijah has done. He's like, man, I want to do what Elijah has done, so I'm going to follow him. And he makes a choice. He makes a choice so big that he says, hey, I don't ever want to go back to my old life. So I'm going to literally burn the plow and kill the oxen that were there, so I can't go back to that old life. He literally could not return to his old life. He decided, I'm no longer going to be this person I was. I'm going to follow you so that I can be like you and see what you do and walk with you instead. And Elisha follows Elijah. And look, this is the relationship that we are missing in our life. If you're saying, man, I feel like on the outside, I don't understand why I'm feeling like this, it's because you're missing this relationship in your life. This relationship and this thing that I want you guys to really get around tonight is this. I want you guys to find an Elisha. Find an Elijah. Find an Elijah, because here's the thing. This relationship changed everything in Elijah's life. Because no longer, after we see this, that he was saying, God, kill me, I'm done. He has purpose in his life because of this relationship. And it totally changed. So what is an Elisha? Like, what am I talking about? Well, Elijah was someone that Elijah was showing his life to, saying, hey, come follow me, see what my life is like, and walk with me. I think there are people in your communities, people in your school, people in your work, that see you and see something different. They do. Maybe they ask questions sometimes like, hey, what church do you go to? Or maybe they're just like, hey, can you just pray for me? Like, I know you pray, and I don't really ask anybody, but I know you pray. If you get a chance, can you just pray for me? Or maybe they're the people that come up to you and like, oh yeah, tell me a little bit about what you did the other night. Like, what was that monster pong thing? And they're asking questions. And look, they're saying, hey, invite me into your life. Invite me to what you're doing. And I'm not saying bring them here, okay? We already did the bring them here thing, all that kind of stuff. I'm saying do life with those people. Say, hey, just come watch me, follow me as I follow Christ and see what I do. That's the relationship we're missing. That's the relationship. And I'm not talking about just with younger kids or whatever. I'm talking about the people in your communities, your circle space. Who are the people that you're looking for saying, hey, come see what I'm doing. Just invite them into your life because this relationship changed Elijah, and I think it'll change us if we have it. And so why do we need this relationship in our life? Why is it so important? And so tonight, I just want to go through 3 reasons why I believe that this relationship, the Elisha relationship, is super important for us to have. And so number 1, I think it's because Jesus told us to. And we're in church, so I can say that, right? I guess, so I'm just joking. But for real, like Jesus told us to do this, and here's what it says in Matthew 28. So right now I'm about to read to you the last thing that Jesus said before he ascended into heaven. If it's the last thing he said, it's obviously pretty important, right? Like these are his last words. This is what he says. Jesus came and told the disciples, I've been given all authority in heaven and on earth. Therefore, go and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Teach these new disciples to obey all the commandments I have given you, and be sure of this, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. So Jesus said, go and make a disciple. And what is a disciple? A disciple is somebody who's learning, who's like watching what you do and seeing what you do. An apprentice, somebody who's walking with you in life, seeing what you're doing. And Jesus said to go and make disciples. And here's what happens though. We hear that and we're like, oh yeah, that's just for the pastors and everyone who knows everything, right? Like that doesn't have anything to do with me. I don't know anything, so how can I go and tell them everything when I don't know anything? I can't do this. But here's the thing. Jesus just says to go and teach them everything that he's commanded you, everything that you know. He's not saying, hey, go teach them everything that's in the Bible. He's saying, hey, go and teach them what you know. If you're in here and you've met Jesus, then you should be going and making disciple, not waiting until you know everything, because no one ever knows everything. You'll be waiting a long time. And so here's the thing. Go and teach what you know. If all you know is that God loves you, go and teach what you know. If all you know is one verse in the Bible, go and teach what you know. If all you know is the things you learned in Sunday school 10 years ago and you don't know anything else, well, go and teach what you know. You don't need to know everything to do this. You need to go and make disciples. Go and teach what you know. And here's the truth. Here's the promise that comes in that is this, is that, and be sure of this, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. And that's the promise that we have, that Jesus is with us. If you have put your faith in Jesus, and if you haven't, then right now I'm not really talking to you, so you get a free pass, you get to hang out, and that's cool. We're really glad you're here. But if you've accepted Jesus, this is the call. Jesus literally says, go. He doesn't say, hey, if you want to go. He says, no, go and make disciples of all nations. So that's our calling to do, is that we need to go and just teach what we know. And so why else should we do this? Why else should we find an Elisha in our lives? Well, I think it's this. It's because your ceiling can be their floor. Your ceiling can be their floor. I was talking to Josh, our amazing Unite director, the other day, and so we were just talking about this sermon a little bit, and he said, yeah, make sure that you talk about how their ceiling can be somebody else's floor. And I was thinking, I was like, man, that is so good. Like, I need to write that down. I need to tweet that. Like, that's such a good point there. And this is true in the Elijah-Elisha relationship, that Elijah's ceiling, meaning the highest that he could go, the most he could do, was Elijah's floor in his life, that Elijah could do way more than Elijah ever could. And that's the truth. And so this is where I'm going to get you guys right up here. Is in this verse I want to share with you. Sorry, hold on. Okay. And so in 2 Kings, this is true. This is where we're going to see this happening. This is at the end of Elijah's life. And so he's about to be taken to heaven, some crazy fire and chariots and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of going to get crazy. But this is what happens. 2 Kings 2:14. When they came to the other side, Elijah said to Elijah, "Tell me what I can do before I am taken away." Elisha replied, "Please let me inherit a double share of your spirit and become your successor." So he's like, "Hey, Elijah, I want to do more than you can do." And this is Elijah's reply. "You have asked a difficult thing. If you see me when I am taken from you, then you will get your request. But if not, then you won't." As they were walking along, suddenly a chariot of fire appeared, drawn by rises of fire. It drove between them, separating the two of them. And Elijah was carried in a whirlwind into heaven. Elisha saw it and cried out, my father, I see the chariots and the charioteers of Israel." And as they disappeared from the sight, Elisha tore his clothes in distress. Elisha picked up Elijah's cloak, which had fallen when he was taken up. Then Elisha returned to the bank of the Jordan River. He struck the water with Elijah's coat and cried out, "Where is the Lord, the God of Elijah?" Then the river divided, and Elisha went across. And so here's what I want you guys to get. That last part where he's like, took his cloak, was the last thing Elijah did before he was taken up, was that he hit the water and they walked through on dry ground. And yet this was the first thing that Elisha was able to do. The first thing was Elijah's last thing, is the first thing that Elisha was going to do. And guess what? It doesn't end there. Look at what happens in 2 Kings 2. One day the leaders of the town of Jericho visited Elisha. "We have a problem, my lord. The town is located in the pleasant surroundings, as you can see, but the water is bad. The land is unproductive." Elisha said, "Bring me a new bowl with salt in it." So they brought it to him, and then they went out to the spring and supplied the town with water and threw salt into it. Then he said, "This is what the Lord says. I have purified this water. It will no longer cause death or infertility." And the water remained pure ever since, just as Elisha said. Elisha went on to do even more crazy things than Elijah did. Elijah never purified water, Elisha did. And that was because Elijah showed him and found him and said, "Hey, I'm gonna walk with you and show this." And guess what? His ceiling of his life was Elisha's floor. And Elijah went on and was able to do those crazy things because he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna live with wanting heaven in mind," saying, "Hey, Elijah, I wanna outlast you. I wanna outlast my own life. I wanna have a legacy that lives on through this person named Elisha." And so again, he didn't do anything crazy. They just walked together. They lived life together. But because they lived life close together, he saw what he was doing, he was able to do more than Elijah ever could. And that's the relationship. That's why. And I've seen this happening in so many different ways with people around the world. And for me, I saw this really happening a few years ago. I did this thing called the Cadre. And the Cadre was a mentorship program for youth pastors all over the world. And we would mentor with this lady named Jeannie Mayo. And she literally would have like 50 youth pastors come to her house. She would do like little conferences type talking with a bunch of youth pastors, just training them, saying, "Hey, come see my life a little bit. And I'm gonna tell you and share with you what happened throughout the years of my youth ministry so that you can be a better youth pastor." And she lived with this. She had the same thought that my ceiling in my life can be someone else's floor. So I want to invest in these other youth pastors so that they can go out and do more than I ever could. And guess what? She did a lot of cool things in her life, and she's still doing cool things. But there are some youth pastors that she led that are doing way better things than she ever could. They're out there leading huge conferences. They're out there with huge, big youth ministries and things like that. And that's because she believed in this concept that her ceiling could be someone else's floor. And she's seen that over and over again. And this is another thing that she really believed, is this, that was her purpose in her life, was to invest in the next generation of youth pastors so that they can invest in the next generation of kids who can grow up to be youth pastors. And this is the thing we see living out. When we actually live this out, we start to fulfill our purpose. And that's the last point. I believe that this fulfills our purpose. See, Jesus said, "Go and make disciples." This is our calling. This is our purpose in life. I'm not saying our overarching, like, yes, you might be called to play in the band, you might be called to preach up on stage, but more than that, our foundation of who we are as Christians is this, that we need to go find an Elijah, that we need to go and make disciples. That's what we're called to. That's the foundation. And that's what gives us significance in our life. When we're like, hey, we want to invest in somebody, we want to bring somebody along, have a friend that's with us, it changes everything in our life. It changes everything because no longer are we going through the war saying, hey, I'm the only one in my work. No, we all of a sudden bring somebody into our life and say, hey, we're in this together. We're not alone anymore. We're going to be together. I'm going to show you what it's like to walk as a Christian. We're going to do this together. When you see somebody at your house and all of a sudden you start to share what it means to be Jesus, to live as a Jesus follower, and your mom starts to be like, well, what's that like? Or your sister or your brother. And then all of a sudden, you're not alone anymore because you're bringing them with you. You're investing in them. You found your Elisha, and all of a sudden you have this purpose and saying, hey, we're not alone. This is what changed Elijah. No longer was he alone in the world saying, hey, I'm doing this all on my own. He said, look, I'm going to find somebody and just invite them to live life with me and go where I'm going. That's what you need to do. Find Elijah. Just look for someone who's taking any interest. Just invite them to do life with you. Say, come on, watch me as I follow Christ. And I promise you, this is what changes everything. And I know it changed my life. When I started seeing purposes, yeah, we can have big parties and we can do the Monster Pong, we can have huge college ministries. But guess what? That's not what's fulfilling. I can tell you that's not what's fulfilling about Chris or Josh or anything. It's the relationships that matter. It's those one-on-one conversations that matter. It's the finding the Elishas and saying, hey, watch me as I follow Christ. Just come and do life with me where you're not alone. That's the Elisha. Find an Elisha. This is our calling as a Christian. Find someone, say, hey, come on, watch me do life. Come and do life with me. And that's what it means to find Elisha. And I believe that this is going to change everything. Because no longer are we just going to say, we want a movement, we want a movement, we want a movement. We're going to start to see it in our lives. And it starts with you. So my question is, who is your Elisha? Who's someone that you notice who's been taking a peek and saying, hey, what are you doing? Like, what's different about you? Invite them into your life. Invite them in. Say, hey, watch me as I follow Christ. That's our call. And so I just want to encourage you tonight, find your Elisha. Find your Elisha. Invite them in, and let's see a real movement happening downriver. So let's pray. God, I just thank you so much for Unite, God. I pray that tonight, that as we transition into singing some songs, God, I pray that you can start to put people's names on hearts, saying, hey, maybe I should talk to this person. Maybe I should invite this person just over for coffee just to talk. Maybe I should start to have conversations with this person from work or this person from my class, the person that I buy at Starbucks all the time, the person I keep running into randomly. God, I pray you start to bring those names to mind and that we can go out there and find our Elijah, invite them just to do life with us. That we say, hey, follow me as I follow Christ. And we start to see a change happening downriver. And so we love you. We thank you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Thank you, guys.